The Zarin Coliseum's vast arena shimmers beneath flickering hollow suns, its sand stained dark with the blood of countless battles. The crowd's thunderous jeers rise and fall like a storm, faces twisted with fury and excitement. Cade Mercer, shackled to a bone-white pillar at the center, is a figure of battered endurance. His bruised flesh gleams with sweat, chains rattle with his restless shifts. The air is thick with dust and anticipation. Above, banners bearing faded insignias flap in the heat. Around him, the roar of the crowd blurs into a distant hum, but the weight of his predicament presses heavily. In the heart of the arena, hope flickers faintly, an ember waiting to ignite. The massive gates swing open with a thunderous creak, revealing Korga the Unyielding, a towering alien gladiator whose presence commands awe and fear. Her crimson scales shimmer under the harsh, hollow sunlight, muscles coiled like springs ready to strike. Clad in battle-worn armor, she strides with purpose, twin plasma blades crackling fiercely in her grasp. Sparks leap as the blades slice through the air, casting eerie red glows onto the bloodied sand. The crowd falls silent, eyes wide with a mixture of dread and respect. Every step she takes shakes the arena floor, a living weapon honed for destruction. The announcer's voice booms. Behold Korga, the Unyielding. Tonight, she crushes a mere earth pit fighter. The words send ripples of excitement and fear through the masses. With a deafening roar, Korga lunges forward, plasma blades arcing in deadly sweeps. Cade's heart hammers as he ducks beneath the furious pivot, sand erupting around him in molten sprays. The arena becomes a blur of fiery light and shattering stone, sparks flying from their clashing weapons. Cade's breaths come sharp and ragged, his grip tightening on the broken stub of his vibro axe. Every muscle screams as he scrambles to evade, instincts overriding pain. Around them, the crowd roars, the line between life and death razor thin. Despite the overwhelming force, Cade's defiance burns bright, a refusal to yield. Each dodge, each counterstrike is a battle cry for survival amid the storm of plasma fury. Mid-attack, Korga freezes, blade inches from Cade's throat. Her guttural growl softens, eyes narrowing in an unexpected respect. The ferocity in Cade's stance speaks not of desperation, but honor. In that fleeting silence, a silent understanding passes, an unspoken bond forged in battle's crucible. The crowd's roar dims, tension shifting to intrigue. Cade meets her gaze, seeing not just a monster bred to kill, but a warrior capable of mercy. This moment, brief yet profound, changes the course of their fight, and perhaps something far deeper. The Zarin Coliseum rises like a monument to imperial decadence and cruelty, its vast dome towering over the desolate cityscape. Around its circumference, holographic VIP boxes shimmer with ethereal light, each housing nobles draped in lavish fabrics and dripping with jewels. Their cold eyes watch below as human and alien gladiators are pitted against one another in brutal combat. The air buzzes with anticipation as bets fly like currency, lives wagered carelessly, reduced to fleeting credits on hollow ledgers. These aristocrats sip spiced vintages and chuckle softly, detached from the blood and sweat that stain the arena sands. For them, the suffering is mere spectacle, a game to satisfy their hunger for power and entertainment. The crowd roars, but above, behind the glimmering luxury, the heart of oppression beats steady and merciless. The Colosseum is more than a battleground. It's a theater of despair and dehumanization. Lining the cold, narrow corridors behind the arena are the genetic enhancement booths, harsh fluorescent light illuminating rows of gladiators shackled into biotic restraint chairs. Each is fitted with nanocollars designed to enforce obedience, their embedded circuitry pulsing faintly against dark skin. Technicians in sterile suits move with practiced attachment, inserting biotech implants and injecting gene-modifying serums. The augmentations promise enhanced strength, reflexes, and endurance, but at the cost of autonomy. Every modification is a chain forged in flesh and wire, binding the gladiators closer to the Empire's will. The collars emit low-frequency hums, monitoring vital signs and punishing dissent with electric shocks. Within these booths, humanity is stripped away, replaced by engineered weaponry molded for spectacle and control. Prisoners exchange fearful glances, some resigned, others simmering with silent rage, as their bodies become both the tools and victims of a merciless system. In the pit below, the mercenary economy of blood and death plays out with ruthless efficiency. Corporate sponsors emblazoned with glowing logos stamp the combat suits of gladiators, turning each warrior into a walking advertisement. Every strike and kill translates into bio credits, digital currency tracked in real time on HUD displays embedded in helmets and weapons. The crowd's cheers fuel the market frenzy, where violence is traded like a commodity. Defeated fighters are dragged screaming into shadow markets, clandestine bazaars where lives are auctioned to the highest bidder, often destined for the death pits or slave labor. Hollow ads flicker incessantly, urging live, die, repeat, earn your freedom, but freedom is a cruel illusion in this place. Cade's pit ID tattoo glows faintly beneath his shoulder, marking him as worthless in the eyes of this brutal system. Allies are outlawed. Trust is a currency rarer than mercy, and every fight tightens the grip of exploitation. Cade Mercer's pit ID tattoo flickers weakly, a branded symbol of his zero value in the Colosseum's merciless ledger. His gaunt eyes scan the hostile crowd, the cacophony around him a blur of jeers and hungry anticipation. Allies are a dangerous myth here, outlawed and hunted. Trust is a fragile ember all but snuffed by fear and betrayal. Yet beneath his battered exterior, a fire simmers, a spark of rebellion growing amidst the bloodsport spectacle. Despite the crushing weight of isolation, Cade's clenched fists and steady gaze betray a defiance that refuses to die. In this arena of cruelty and commerce, he senses something more than just survival. The clash of steel and plasma might be the spark to ignite a revolution, if he can withstand the carnage long enough to seize it. The crowd's furious roar filled the air, a tidal wave of rage demanding Cade Mercer's death. Voices clamored, fists pounding the arena rails, their bloodlust a palpable force. Yet, in the heart of that chaos, something unexpected cracked the fury. Korga the Unyielding, her massive frame towering over the dust-choked sands, stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately, she extended a gauntlet hand and laid it on Cade's battered shoulder. The contact sent a shock not just through Cade's aching body, but reverberated across the entire arena. Guards froze mid-stride, mouths agape, while spectators exchanged stunned glances. Murmurs rippled like static through the stands, an act of mercy unheard of in the Zarin bloodsport. Korga's grip was firm, not patronizing. Her eyes beneath the shimmering helmet met Cade's with a fierce respect. The power dynamics shifted in that moment. The unyielding warrior defied expectation, signaling that beneath the scales and blades lay a code stronger than mere survival. The crowd's roar wavered, confusion mingling with curiosity. In this arena designed for death, mercy had become the most unexpected weapon of all. Korga's voice dropped low, a rasp woven with steel and something almost tender as she leaned close. In rough Sovian, the harsh dialect of her war-torn homeworld, she whispered a command that cut through the haze of pain and noise. Stand. Fight. Survive. Each word struck Cade like a hammer to his resolve. Though battered and bloodied, his eyes, dull moments ago with defeat, flickered with renewed fire. The whispered order wasn't just instruction. It was a lifeline. Cade's breath caught as he forced his trembling limbs to obey. His vision sharpened, the pain in his ribs dulled by adrenaline and willpower. He wasn't merely a pit fighter now. He was a man reborn in defiance. Korga's presence, steady and unyielding, was the spark rekindling his courage. The rough cadence of her voice became an anchor amidst the storm, drawing him back from the edge of despair. With every labored inhale, he felt the weight of her belief settling into his bones, a promise that survival was not just possible, but imperative. As they circled warily, each sizing the other amid the swirling dust, Cade's dry wit cut through the tension like a blade. "You planning to starve me next?" he quipped, forcing a crooked grin despite the ache in his limbs. The jest was thin, but earned a deep, rumbling chuckle from Korga, the first flicker of warmth in her alien features. Her eyes glinted beneath her helmet as she replied, "I feast on your courage, pit fighter." The exchange was unexpected, humanity bleeding through the armor of survival. For a fleeting moment, the harsh arena melted away, replaced by a fragile camaraderie forged in fire and blood. The smiles were brief, but genuine, breaking the silence between blows and roar. Trust, tentative and raw, began to take root in that shared humor. Even in the harshest crucible, they found a fragment of connection, a bond that might one day defy the very system that sought to crush them both. Beneath her helmet's HUD, where the glow of data and commands filled her vision, Korga's fingers moved with practiced precision. A quick swipe, a few taps, then the nanocollar's kill switch blinked once, twice, and faded to black. The embedded device, a sinister tool of Imperial control designed to end any rebellion with a single pulse, was now silently disabled. This act of rebellion was unspoken, invisible to the spectators and enforcers alike, yet monumental in its defiance. To tamper with the collar was punishable by death, a risk few dared take. But Korga understood the price of submission and chose courage instead. The fading red light was a beacon of her will, a quiet promise that she would no longer be a puppet in the Empire's deadly game. This silent rebellion resonated deep within her, a private vow to fight not just for survival, but for freedom. Beneath the crushing weight of control, she found the space to reclaim agency, an act of courage as fierce and dangerous as any blade she wielded. When the Emperor's enforcers finally breached the arena's perimeter, the air thickened with urgency and the crackle of plasma. Korga moved with lethal grace, twin blades flashing like crimson comets as she cut a protective arc around Cade. Each strike was a blend of raw strength and honed skill, a dance of defiance against overwhelming odds. Cade, galvanized by her fierce protection, wielded his broken vibroaxe with newfound vigor, parrying blows and striking back with desperation and hope. Their movements synchronized instinctively, backs pressed against each other as plasma bolts sang past, scorching the sand and sending shards of molten metal into the air. They were more than gladiator and prisoner now. They were allies bound by circumstance and choice, united against a common enemy. The arena became a battleground not only of flesh and steel, but of shared conviction. Every clash of weapons echoed their growing loyalty, every narrow escape a testament to their unyielding will. In the face of relentless assault, their alliance blazed brighter than the fires surrounding them, a fierce beacon of solidarity amid chaos. Amidst the flaming debris and smoke-choked air, Korga reached into her armor and withdrew a plasma shard, an elegant, jagged fragment pulsing with a deep blue light. She extended it toward Cade, her voice low and steady. "Weapon of my honor." The gesture was both symbolic and sincere, a sacred passing of trust from warrior to warrior. Cade's heart thundered in his chest as he accepted the shard, the cool energy humming against his palm. In that moment, the arena's noise faded, replaced by a profound silence filled only with understanding. The glow of the plasma shard flickered against their faces, illuminating the grit and determination reflected in their eyes. Cade's grip tightened as he whispered, "Then let's honor the living." The gift bound them beyond the necessity of survival. It forged a new pact, a promise to fight not just for themselves, but for something greater. In the heart of mayhem, hope had found a home. Beneath the roaring chaos of the Zarin Colosseum, Cade Mercer found himself descending into the Gladiator's crypt, a shadowed vault hidden beneath the sands. The air was thick with dust and the scent of forgotten blood. As he navigated the narrow passageways, hollow projectors flickered to life, casting ghostly blue light onto the cracked stone walls. Before him, hollow records began to play, revealing a story long buried by empire and time. There, in vivid detail, was Korga's true lineage, the lost heir to the warlike Throvak Empress, a daughter stolen and sold into slavery as a child. The regal bearing of the Empress was unmistakable, her armor adorned with sigils of command and ancient war honors. The weight of betrayal pressed down as Cade watched scenes of the young Korga torn from palace halls and thrust into the brutal arena, a pawn in a cruel imperial game. His heart tightened with sympathy and resolve. This revelation transformed Korga from a fearsome gladiator to a tragic symbol of stolen birthright, a princess shackled by fate but destined for reclamation. In the dim glow of a data terminal, Cade scanned the intricate biosignatures embedded within Korga's DNA. Nested deep in her genetic code was the Empress's command sigil, a living key encoded by ancient biotechnologies granting unparalleled authority over the Throvak war fleets. This wasn't mere lineage, it was a sovereign code, a quantum marker recognized by every warship's neural interface and command matrix. The realization struck with awe and danger. Korga was not just heir by blood, but the literal key to reawakening a dormant empire's might. The armored gauntlet she wore pulsed softly, synchronized with the genetic signal, glowing emerald with the silent power of sovereignty. Yet this power was a heavy burden, a beacon to allies and a target for foes. The weight of this biological inheritance was both a promise of potential and a looming threat, a sword hanging precariously over her fate. As Cade absorbed the significance, he understood that reclaiming Korga's rightful place would change the course of the war beyond the arena's confines. The hollow ghosts that flickered before them painted a vivid and painful history. Ethereal images shimmered, replaying the palace coup that shattered the Throvak dynasty. The spectral figures of corporate mercenaries storming gilded halls clashed violently with loyalists, their faces twisted with greed and malice. The young Korga, once cradled in regal splendor, was torn from her family by force, her cries swallowed by chaos and smoke. These betrayals echoed not only through history, but through every heartbeat of the gladiator who fought for survival. The images were more than memories. They were the foundation of Korga's resolve, a testament to loss that fueled her unyielding spirit. As the final scene faded into darkness, Cade felt the raw pain of a lineage stolen, a legacy usurped by cold corporate ambition. Yet within those echoes lay the seeds of resilience, an unbroken will to rise, reclaim, and defy the merciless fate imposed upon her. Hidden within encrypted archives, a sinister directive scrolled relentlessly across a flickering console screen. Terminate heir at first arena victory. The Empire's brutal failsafe was clear. Should Korga survive and prove victorious in her initial combat, she was to be executed to prevent any challenge to Imperial authority. The Star Command was a cold reminder of the cruelty underpinning the Gladiator's fate. Each of her hard-won victories was a step closer to death by design, making survival an act of rebellion itself. Guards patrolled the arena's shadows, their weapons gleaming with lethal intent, oblivious to the silent war being fought beneath the surface. Cade's heart pounded at the knowledge that every move they made was shadowed by a death sentence, heightening the stakes beyond mere survival. This order transformed Korga's existence into a tightrope walk between triumph and annihilation, with no room for mercy from those who sought to snuff out her flame. In the dim light of the crypt, Cade's voice broke through the silence as he confronted Korga with the truth of her engineered fate. "They bred you to die for them," he said softly, his gaze steady and filled with fierce compassion. "But now, you're free." The intensity in his eyes reflected the weight of their shared plight and newfound hope. Across from him, Korga's armor crest pulsed emerald, glowing in rhythm with her resolute heartbeat. She met his words with a slow, determined nod, her voice steady but trembling with raw emotion. "I choose my own destiny." The moment was electric, a collision of pain and empowerment, sorrow and defiance. In that confined space, they forged a bond stronger than bloodlines or battle scars, a pact born of understanding and mutual strength. The gladiator was no longer a pawn. She was a queen in exile, ready to reclaim what was stolen and chart her own course. Suddenly, the cavern's alarm blared, a harsh, unrelenting war horn slicing through the charged air. Red sirens flashed wildly, casting erratic shadows on cold stone. The sensors detected guard reinforcements rapidly breaching the vault's outer defenses. A glowing digital timer ticked down with grim precision. T-minus 427 until their capture. The oppressive urgency tightened around Cade and Korga, who exchanged tense glances. Time was no longer an ally, but a relentless predator closing in. The sound of armored footsteps echoed faintly through the corridors beyond, signaling the swift approach of Imperial enforcers. Every second wasted meant fewer chances for escape. Their window was shrinking fast. With resolve hardening in their eyes, they prepared to act, knowing that failure meant death and victory meant freedom for not just themselves, but for a cause far greater than the arena walls. Cade quickly interfaced with the crypt's hollow terminal, his fingers flying across translucent controls as he prepared to unleash a data torrent. Streams of encrypted hollow records and coup evidence cascaded into pirate communication jammers scattered across the star systems. The data flooded out, igniting sparks of rebellion in hidden rebel bases and shipyards alike. Flickering holomaps lit up with new activity. Coordinates pinpointed secret rebel cells rallying at long last. The ripple effect was immediate and powerful. Messages of the Empress's betrayal and the truth behind the gladiator's captivity galvanized the oppressed, turning whispers of hope into cries for revolution. The spreading fire of resistance found new fuel in Cade's decisive act. As ships prepared to rise, the rebel networks surged with renewed energy, united by the truth now broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. Their fight was no longer secret. It had become a beacon of defiance. In the glow of the arena's dim emergency lights, Korga solemnly accepted a new identity, Throvicard. The code name embodied her reclaimed heritage and the fierce spirit burning within. She extended her arm toward Cade, their forearms meeting in a firm clasp, palms gripping with bloodied resolve. The emerald crest on her armor flared brightly, sealing their pact in the sands stained by past battles. This was no mere alliance of convenience, but a covenant forged in hardship and shared destiny. Together, they embodied the rebellion's heart, a symbol of hope rising from ashes. Their unity was a statement to the Empire. The rightful heir had returned, and with her, the promise of revolution. The moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, where trust and purpose intertwined to fuel the fires of freedom. Side by side, they were ready to challenge an empire built on lies. The arena floor trembled as Korga struck the emergency shaft's control panel with fierce determination. Steel grated, mechanisms groaned, and the vast platform slid open to reveal a shadowy tunnel beneath. Plasma lances streaked the dome's surface above, scorching arcs of deadly energy chasing shadows. Cade ignited his jet blade thrusters, flames licking the edges as he rose, muscles taut and eyes fixed on freedom's promise. Korga followed swiftly, her armor shimmering with every calculated step. They moved as one, navigating the labyrinthine tunnels with a mixture of practiced skill and raw desperation. Behind them, the roar of pursuing guards grew louder, their footsteps pounding a relentless rhythm. The scent of burnt ozone mingled with dust as plasma bolts sliced through the darkness, narrowly missing their marks. Each narrow escape tightened the bond forged in fire and blood. They burst into a wider chamber, momentarily free from the crush of enemies, breath ragged but spirits undaunted. Their rebellion had begun, not just a fight for survival, but a war to reclaim their stolen futures. Beyond the tunnel's exit, the rebel cell awaited, their bracelets glowing with pulsating light, an unspoken signal of solidarity and readiness. Cade and Korga emerged from the shadows, faces set with grim determination. Around them, warriors of varied origins and fierce loyalty prepared weapons, their eyes reflecting hope and defiance. The air hummed with tension and anticipation. Cade nodded, acknowledging the gravity of what lay ahead. "Time to ignite the galaxy," he declared, voice low but unwavering. The cell responded with quiet cheers, the sound swelling like a rising tide of revolution. This was more than a mere escape. It was the birth of a movement, a collective vow to challenge the Empire's grip. Side by side, the Gladiator and the Pit Fighter stepped forward, united in purpose and ready to fan the flames of rebellion across star systems. Across the sprawling star sectors of the Empire, holoboards erupted into flashing warnings. Threat tagged. Tcharovkrt, Rebel Insurrection. The name Korga, now reborn as Throvikart, was branded an enemy of the state, her image etched into every holostream as a symbol of rebellion. From crowded spaceports to austere war rooms, the Empire's propaganda machinery pumped fear into loyalists, warning that any who aided the insurgent would face swift and merciless reprisal. Crowds paused, eyes fixed on glowing panels flickering in the dim light, whispers spreading like wildfire. The Empire's reach felt absolute, surveillance nets tightening, as the name Throvikart echoed as both a rallying cry for the oppressed and a death sentence for the defiant. This broadcast wasn't just an alert. It was a declaration of war against hope itself. The tension mounted palpably, a silent pressure building as citizens weighed loyalty against fear, while somewhere deep in the void, a spark of insurgent fire began to glow brighter. From the black silence of hyperspace, colossal dreadnoughts surged forward in dark formations, the might of the corporate armada converging on Zarin Coliseum like an unstoppable storm. These war machines, gleaming with cold steel and lethal weaponry, bore the scars of countless battles, yet remained embodiments of terrifying power. Orders crackled through encrypted channels, neutralize Throvikart and quell rebellion at all costs. Massive cannon turrets hummed to life, charging with deadly precision as fleets deployed in synchronized maneuvers, weaving complex battle formations that blanketed entire star sectors. The oppressive thrum of engines and the flicker of targeting systems cast eerie glows across command bridges, where officers monitored the impending siege with grim determination. The fate of the rebels and the future of the rebellion hung precariously as overwhelming firepower loomed. For the insurgents, this wasn't just a battle. It was a fight against annihilation, a desperate gambit to defy an empire built on control and subjugation. The siege was imminent, and with it, the crucible that would forge legends or extinguish hope forever. From shadowed pirate dens nestled in asteroid belts to the volatile fringe worlds beyond Imperial reach, Cade's broadcast shattered the silence. His voice crackled across stolen frequencies, cutting through static with a rallying cry. Claim your freedom. Fight for Throvikart. The message ignited a wildfire of defiance, uniting scattered pirate clans, outlaws, and disenfranchised rebels under a single banner. Hollow banners flashed in hidden alcoves, casting vibrant, rebellious hues on the faces of tattooed crews and hardened smugglers preparing ships for war. Ships revved in dockyards, crews tightened harnesses, and blades were sharpened in anticipation. The disparate factions, once fractured by mistrust and survival, found a common cause in the hope that Throvikart symbolized. The call transcended mere rebellion. It was an awakening, a reclamation of agency in a galaxy long ruled by fear. As the message spread, it carved a path through the chaos, binding the scattered into a force ready to rise and shatter the chains imposed by corporate tyranny. Hijacking the Empire's own comm networks, Cade's voice boomed through countless channels, wielding words as sharpened weapons. They sold her life and lost their leverage, he declared, his tone fierce and resolute. The broadcast rippled across spaceports, rebel hideouts, and commandeered ships, rekindling sparks of hope where despair had once dwelled. Thousands paused, their faces illuminated by hollow screens, streaming Cade's impassioned speech. His charisma ignited courage, reminding the oppressed that power resided not only in arms but in conviction. His words shattered imperial propaganda's veneer of invincibility, revealing the cracks in their control. As insurgents clenched fists and nodded in silent agreement, the rally transformed into a movement fueled by belief. Cade wasn't just a fighter. He was the voice of rebellion, inspiring allies to stand firm despite the looming storm. The intangible weapon of hope now rivaled the dreadnought's firepower, poised to turn the tide of the conflict. Above the war-torn arenas and battered spaceports, Korga soared in her jet-blade-equipped armor, a blazing streak of defiance against the Empire's crushing weight. Her movements were a symphony of power and grace, each jet thruster flare carving arcs of fiery rebellion through the smoky skies. As she twisted and spun with lethal precision, gladiators and rebels alike looked upward, their cheers echoing the fierce pride ignited by her daring displays. Her plasma blades glowed, twin beacons of rebellion slicing through the oppressive haze, signaling a rallying point for those chained by fear. Every daring maneuver communicated command, her voice cutting through calm static with orders that coordinated strikes and fueled morale. In the face of overwhelming force, she embodied the unyielding spirit of freedom, her presence alone inspiring gladiators turned insurgents to rise and fight, not just for survival, but for sovereignty. Her wings were not just instruments of war. They were symbols of unbreakable will. Each jump gate became a perilous gauntlet, their routes shadowed by imperial blockades and ruthless trackers. Cade moved with calculated precision, severing comm links and burning data caches to erase digital trails that would lead their pursuers. The rebel fleet slipped through star systems, weaving labyrinthine paths known only to those daring enough to evade imperial reach. Radar blips vanished, and encrypted transmissions flickered into silence as they navigated the treacherous void. Every jump was a gamble, a silent prayer whispered amid the stars that no ambush awaited beyond the next warp gate. This dance of shadows tested the fleet's resilience and Cade's cunning, forcing them to carve new paths where none existed. In breaking these chains of surveillance and control, they claimed not just physical freedom, but the reclaiming of agency long denied. Under the storm of Imperial warships, the newly freed gladiators rallied behind Cade and Korga, no longer mere prisoners, but warriors reborn in the fires of defiance. Faces once marked by fear now gleamed with fierce determination, eyes burning with the resolve to shatter chains of servitude. The clang of weapons echoed through the corridors of their battered ships, hands gripping blades and plasma rifles with newfound purpose. Armor bore fresh insignias, the emerald Throvic heart crest shining as a symbol of hope and rebellion. The unity was palpable, a binding force forged in shared struggle and vision. As the rebel fleet surged through the starfields, their charge was not just a flight for survival, but a stand for dignity, sovereignty, and the promise of a galaxy free from tyranny. Together, these gladiators turned rebels embodied the indomitable spirit of resistance, poised to ignite the cosmos with the fires of revolution. Inside the dim sanctuary of a rebel safe house, Cade sat hunched over a hollow table, eyes fixed on flickering holologs, streaming quiet scenes of liberation. Former gladiators, once chained slaves in blood-soaked arenas, now gathered to drink water freely, their laughter fragile but genuine. Some wept softly, overwhelmed by the simple gift of choice. The contrast between their brutal past and this tentative present pressed heavily on Cade's mind. The silent gravity of freedom's cost weighed on him as the soft blue glow illuminated faces both joyful and haunted. Hope filled the room, but beneath it lay the lingering shadows of suffering, a piece as delicate as glass, waiting to be guarded fiercely. Korga stood apart from the revelry, her armored back turned to the warm glow of the holologs. Her voice came low, a whisper laden with burden. I was bred to kill them all. Those words hung heavy, a confession of the engineered brutality etched into her very DNA. In coordinated, silent precision, they unleashed a volley of plasma pulses toward the Imperial blockade runners encircling Zarin. These strikes were not born of wanton destruction, but of calculated mercy, a deliberate targeting of engines, power cores, and propulsion systems to disable the enemy's ships without tearing their hulls apart. The dark void rippled with arcs of shimmering energy as crippled vessels drifted powerless, stranded by the rebels' tactical brilliance. This approach embodied a discipline rare in warfare. The rebels fought not to slaughter, but to liberate. Each pulse carried the weight of hope for the enslaved and a promise that death would not be dealt indiscriminately. As engines failed and blockade corridors opened, the rebel fleet surged forward, their advance a beacon to all who dared to dream of freedom. It was a war fought with heart and strategy, precision overcoming might, mercy shaping victory. Aboard the rebel dreadnoughts, the once enslaved gladiators, now warriors reborn, took center stage in the fight for freedom. At the forefront, Korga led fierce boarding parties with unyielding resolve, her plasma blades a blur of crimson light as they sliced through shackles and slave collars. Each clang of metal breaking echoed through the tight corridors of captured Imperial vessels, signaling a renewed life for those once condemned to death pits and arena slavery. The prisoners, freed from their bindings, quickly rallied behind Korga, their loyalty fierce and immediate. Faces that had known only despair now burned with the fire of rebellion, their bodies strengthened by the hope of justice. With every collar severed, the gladiators reclaimed their dignity and purpose, swelling the rebel ranks with seasoned fighters who understood the cost of servitude firsthand. Korga stood as both commander and symbol, a living testament to survival and resurgence, inspiring those around her to fight with relentless spirit. Their unity was more than military. It was a reclamation of identity, a bold defiance against an empire built on cruelty. The Imperial throne room, once a sanctuary of oppression and cold dominion, now bore witness to an unprecedented spectacle of defiance. Cade stood at its heart, unfurling a glowing holomap that displayed the territories newly freed by their rebellion. The soft azure light bathed the gathered fighters, highlighting their weathered faces and resolute eyes. This map was no mere chart. It was a testament to sacrifices made and battles won, a beacon of hope for the many who had suffered under Imperial chains. The room fell silent as Cade's voice echoed with a mix of pride and solemnity. This is our legacy. Around him, the rebels absorbed the magnitude of their achievement, the map etching into their memories the weight of unity and shared purpose. It was a defining moment. More than a military victory, it was the carving of history in light, the birth of a new chapter where freedom was not a fleeting dream, but a hard-won reality. Faces softened in relief, hearts swelled with resolve, and a collective understanding settled. The future belonged to those who dared to reclaim it. With the thrill of victory fresh in their veins, the rebels harnessed the power of transparency as a weapon. They broadcast the Colosseum's survivor manifests and freed slave lists across a network of Pyrocom jammers and sympathetic star systems. The data torrent rippled through space, igniting a wave of emotional reunions and political shifts. Former colonies, once silent under Imperial rule, flung open their gates, welcoming the returning gladiators and their families with open arms and tear-streaked joy. Ships docked at bustling ports where crowds surged forward to greet heroes they had only heard of in whispered tales. The broadcast shattered the isolation of enslaved fighters, connecting them to home and history in a way words alone never could. At the same time, governments sympathetic to the rebellion began to recognize and legitimize the new reality. No longer were gladiators seen as mere combatants, but as symbols of hope and resilience. This public unveiling of truth bolstered rebel morale and cemented their place not just as warriors, but as rightful heirs to a reclaimed legacy. The reverberations of rebellion echoed through imperial courts as puppet monarchs, once puppeteers of oppression, found themselves powerless. Pressured by the unstoppable tide of revolt and shifting allegiances, these figureheads abdicated or were swiftly replaced. In their stead, new governorship councils formed, composed of former slaves, revolutionaries, and disillusioned soldiers, those who had borne the brunt of tyranny and now sought to rebuild with justice and equity. The transformation was profound. Where once there was fear and subjugation, now there was hope and accountability. Council chambers bustled with animated debate, the voices of diverse delegates crafting decrees that would govern liberated worlds with fairness. City squares and public forums erupted in celebration, banners of the rebellion replacing imperial insignias. This shift was not just political, but symbolic. The fall of an empire's corrupt structure and the rise of a governance rooted in the people's will. The legacy of oppression was dismantled, brick by brick, by those who had once been its victims. Deep within the empire's ancient archive chambers, Korga and Cade stood side by side, their hands clasped over the parchment that would mark a new beginning. With deliberate solemnity, they signed pardons and decrees that formally abolished slavery and tyranny across the reclaimed systems. Their oath was clear and binding. Let no chain bind a living heart. This covenant was more than legalese. It was a promise engraved in history and soul, a commitment to uphold freedom and dignity for all. Emerald sigils glowed softly from their armor and the parchment itself, symbolizing the merging of past heritage and future hope. The archival chambers, bathed in gentle light, bore witness to this pivotal moment, an unbreakable bond between leaders and people, forged in sacrifice and vision. It was a call to vigilance and justice, ensuring that the dark days of bondage would never return. Across the liberated star systems, the echoes of violence and despair gave way to renewal and life. Former coliseums and brutal arenas, once stages for bloodsport and oppression, were transformed into vibrant forums, marketplaces, and cultural hubs. The clang of weapons was replaced by the hum of commerce and spirited debate as communities gathered to share ideas, art, and governance. Children played where gladiators once fought, laughter weaving through the ruins of tyranny. The repurposing of these spaces was a powerful symbol, the reclamation of history not through destruction, but through creation. Each plaza and marketplace became a living testament to the resilience of the oppressed and their capacity to rebuild. These new agoras were more than physical spaces. They were the heartbeats of societies renewed, places where freedom was celebrated daily and the scars of past battles healed in light and hope. The flagship Throvik Heart rested peacefully above Ruin Station, its emerald banner unfurled and catching the light of the twin suns. The once-forgotten ship had become a symbol of freedom's dawn, anchoring a fleet dedicated to justice and renewal. Its hull bore the scars of battle, but shone with the promise of lasting change. The warrior crafted for violence now wrestled with a heart stirred by mercy and rebellion. Her fists clenched tightly, armor plates creaking under silent tension. The gulf between who she was made to be and who she chose to become gnawed at her soul, a silent torment that threatened to fracture the fragile bonds she'd fought to forge. Cade moved quietly beside her, his eyes meeting hers with steady resolve. Gently, he lifted her chin, forcing her gaze to hold his own. "You've chosen to save them. That's your true power," he said softly, voice firm yet full of warmth. His words sought to bridge the divide between her past and the hope she embodied now. Beyond bloodlines and battles, Beyond the chains of origin, Cade saw the warrior's humanity shining through. His touch against her armored gauntlet was a silent vow, an affirmation that the power to choose compassion over cruelty was the greatest freedom of all. Though their hands almost touched, a subtle tension lingered between them, a silent rift wrought from unspoken fears. Both knew too well the cost of trust shattered, the sharp sting of betrayal echoing in the quiet moments. Shadows played across the dim room as hesitant glances flickered like fragile flames threatened by a cold wind. Words remained trapped behind clenched jaws and wary eyes, the weight of history pressing down with quiet insistence. The possibility that their alliance could crumble beneath the pressure of past scars and looming futures hung heavy, casting a delicate veil of uncertainty over their fragile unity. Korga's voice softened further, almost trembling. "Can I trust this heart?" The question, simple yet profound, cut through the silence, revealing the vulnerability beneath her armor. It was not just a plea for reassurance, but an acknowledgement of the fragile trust born from shared bloodshed and battles fought side by side. Her eyes searched his face, seeking the courage to believe that the heart before her would not falter, would not turn away. In that fragile moment, strength and fragility intertwined, a testament to the power of hope forged in the crucible of pain. Without hesitation, Cade leaned forward, pressing a tender kiss to her armored gauntlet, the metal cool beneath his lips yet pulsing faintly with the sigil's glow. The simple gesture spoke volumes, an unspoken promise sealed in quiet intimacy. "I trust every beat," he whispered, his voice steady, carrying the weight of unyielding devotion. That kiss was more than ritual. It was a covenant, binding them beyond words and steel, a beacon shining through uncertainty. In that moment, the fragile thread of trust was woven into an unbreakable bond. The THROVKCRT sigil glowed softly against Korga's armored shoulder, a pulsating symbol of renewal and shared destiny. As their hands finally clasped, fingers entwined beneath the flickering light, the shadows that once loomed between them began to recede. The emblem became more than armor decoration. It was a beacon of unity, a testament to two souls fused by purpose and hope. Together, they stood ready to face the uncertain road ahead, bound by a rekindled trust that would carry them through the darkest trials. Their hearts beat in synchrony, echoing a future forged anew. Beneath the vast alien skies, a formidable armada of rebel warships bore the emerald sigil of Throvikart, emerging in formation at the coordinates of the recently freed Zarin Colosseum. The ancient ruins surrounding the arena, massive stone temples etched with the scars of forgotten wars, stood sentinel as the ships slipped from warp, their hulls gleaming under the twin suns. Each vessel's emerald crest shimmered with purpose, a beacon of defiance and unity amid the cold expanse of space. The fleet's slow, deliberate approach spoke volumes. This was no mere gathering of ships, but a rising storm, anchored not just in military might, but in the reclaimed honor of a people long oppressed. Across comm channels, excited chatter rippled as crews prepared for the uprising about to unfold, a rebellion rooted deeply in heritage, ready to shatter imperial chains once and for all. Striding confidently atop the flagship Nightblood Carrack, Korga's presence commanded immediate respect. Her crimson-scaled armor caught the flickering hololights, casting shifting reflections as she raised her gauntlet fist high. Through the ship's broadcast system, her voice rang out clear and unyielding. "To every corner of the Empire, we are no longer your prey." Her words echoed far beyond the vessel's hull, igniting hope among scattered rebels and enslaved gladiators alike. The transformation from captive gladiator to sovereign leader was unmistakable. She was no longer a pawn, but the herald of a new era. Around her, crew members saluted, their faces alight with renewed purpose. This was more than rebellion. It was reclamation. Korga reclaiming not only her name, but the rightful destiny of her people. Aboard the fleet, The atmosphere shifted as former gladiators, once shackled slaves, raised their chains high above steel decks. The clang of rusted metal against unyielding plating rang out, a defiant percussion that resonated through the warp gates. Their unified battle cry burst forth, raw and primal, reverberating across the vast expanse of space and sending ripples through rebel networks galaxy-wide. For many, this moment was the cathartic release of years spent in chains, physical and psychological. The sound was more than noise. It was a solemn vow, a promise forged in pain and perseverance, to fight until tyranny fell and freedom reigned. Eyes gleamed with fierce determination as hands gripped weapons anew, hearts beating in rhythm with a cause reborn. The uprising was no longer a dream. It was reality, alive and roaring like a tempest on the verge of breaking. Standing steadfast beside Korga, Cade's presence was a bulwark of unshakable loyalty and resolve. His vibro-axe hung casually at his side, eyes sharp and burning with purpose. Facing the assembled fleet and the thousands watching through comm feeds, he declared in a voice both calm and commanding, "We fight for every forgotten soul." The weight of his words echoed the shared mission binding this unlikely coalition. Former slaves, rebels, and outcasts now united. Cade was the unwavering backbone to Korga's fierce leadership, a reminder that this fight was not just for territory or power, but for the dignity and freedom stolen from countless lives. Around them, the fleet's green emblem shimmered as a symbol of hope reborn, standing tall against the looming darkness of empire. In a symbolic act of reclamation, the colossal hollow dome towering over the Zarin Colosseum shifted from its decades-old imperial propaganda to vibrant rebel imagery. The glowing surface flickered as it was reprogrammed to broadcast a bold new message: Throvik, sovereign of freedom. Digital banners unfurled across the dome's curved face, their emerald hues contrasting sharply against the cold steel and stone. The once oppressive symbol of enslavement and bloodsport now pulsed as a radiant beacon of defiance and hope. This transformation was broadcast across the Empire's vast communication grids, sending a clear message to friend and foe alike. The age of subjugation was ending, and a new era of freedom was dawning, heralded by a gladiator who had shattered chains and reclaimed her rightful place in history. The rebel dreadnoughts emerged from the shadows of warp, their emerald sigils blazing defiantly against the backdrop of cold stars. Around it, Allied vessels gathered in quiet solidarity, their crews united by the vision of a galaxy free from tyranny. Faces turned upward, eyes reflecting the glowing banner, a beacon cutting through the darkness. The flagship's engines hummed a soft lullaby, a gentle reminder that this was not the end, but the beginning of an era defined by hope, resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of those who dared to fight for freedom. In the silence of space, the legacy of Throvik blazed bright, lighting the way for generations yet to come. Where once the clang of steel and the roar of the crowd had filled the air, now soft voices and steady hands moved in quiet purpose. Former gladiators, their bodies still bearing scars of countless battles, gathered in open courtyards and abandoned workshops, teaching meditation alongside mechanics. In the Broken Ring district, once a grim nexus of bloodsport, they instructed youth in calming breathwork and the careful art of machine repair. Nearby, former slaves and rebels worked side by side with architects and engineers, raising walls that had long crumbled under war's weight. The smell of fresh timber mingled with dust and the faint tang of oil as hands hammered, painted, and planted seeds for gardens. Children laughed and played amid scaffolds, their joyful noise a balm against the ghosts of past suffering. Each nail driven into a rebuilt home echoed a promise. This was more than survival. It was rebirth. The scars of battle remained, but now they were overlaid with hope and healing. In these acts of creation, the community found strength and the first true steps toward a future reclaimed from ruin. Across war-scarred systems, Cade orchestrated relentless relief missions, coordinating convoys to bring vital supplies and medicine to devastated colonies. His leadership was hands-on and resolute, directing teams unloading crates beneath alien suns, listening to the needs of recovering communities. Meanwhile, Korga navigated the intricate halls of diplomacy, negotiating sweeping debt forgiveness with former imperial creditors who reluctantly loosened their grip. Her calm presence and firm resolve bridged centuries of distrust, turning old foes into hesitant allies. In conference rooms filled with holographic maps and treaty documents, she brokered peace through words and shared vision. "We are rebuilding not just worlds, but trust," she told gathered delegates, her voice steady. Together, their complementary strengths, Cade's practical grit and Korga's diplomatic grace, wove the fabric of renewal. Their efforts were a beacon to those who dared to dream beyond the scars of war, proving that leadership was as much about healing wounds as winning battles. Offered the regency of the reclaimed territories, Korga stood on a ridge overlooking the sunrise-drenched plains of a once-burned world. The ceremonial crown weighed heavy in her hands, not a symbol of dominion, but of duty. She smiled softly, turning to Cade beside her. "I will not be a ruler bound by throne or title," she said, "but a guardian, serving the people, protecting their freedom, not commanding it." This choice reflected a new paradigm of leadership, rooted in stewardship rather than power, in service rather than command. She knew the burdens of kingship were many, but the promise of freedom required humility and solidarity. Together, they embodied a leadership that lifted rather than oppressed, inspired rather than dictated. In her heart, she carried the hope that true strength came not from control, but from shared purpose and unwavering guardianship. Hand in armored gauntlet, Cade and Korga stood atop the refitted bridge of the flagship, gazing as twin suns rose together over the horizon of a reclaimed world. Golden light spilled across scarred valleys and budding forests, washing away the long shadows of tyranny. In that serene dawn, their unity was palpable, a bond forged in fire and tempered by hope. The silent promise between them was clear. Together, they would banish the darkness of the past and nurture the fragile light of peace. As warmth bathed the landscape, the dawn became more than a daily miracle. It was a metaphor for their shared journey. A future once shattered was now whole, brightened by two hearts entwined in purpose and promise, lighting the way for generations yet to come. At every reclaimed Colosseum, the emerald Throvic heart crest glowed softly, no longer a mark of chains, but a beacon of sanctuary. Former arenas had been transformed into vibrant centers where voices were free to rise and ideas blossomed. Plaques commemorated the struggle. Murals told stories of resilience. Statues of freed gladiators stood proudly. Communities gathered for festivals celebrating culture, history, and hard-won freedom. In the shadow of structures once soaked in blood, hope thrived. The emerald sigil became a universal symbol of peace, renewal, and unyielding spirit. These sanctuaries were living legacies, places where the past pain was acknowledged but never allowed to define the future. The grand amphitheater of New Concordia, once a brutal arena of bloodsport, now hummed softly with the murmurs of peace and learning. Sunlight poured through towering arches, casting warm patterns on polished stone and verdant gardens below. A young envoy, eyes bright with reverence, knelt before Korga Throvikart. His voice, filled with awe, cut through the hush. "Is it true you challenged a human, and won more than a battle?" Around them, faces of all ages looked on, embodying hope and the promise of a new era. The amphitheater had transformed into a cradle of inspiration, where stories of courage shaped the future, and Korga's journey stood as a shining beacon for generations yet to come. Kneeling, Korga's voice was soft, but carried the weight of a warrior tempered by wisdom. "I challenged fear itself," she said, eyes distant yet steady. "The fear bred by chains, by betrayal, by the relentless demands of a legacy I never chose." Her breath caught in the quiet, the fierce scales softened by a moment of vulnerability. It wasn't just the human before me in that arena. No, the true battle was within. To find courage not just to fight, but to open a heart worth saving. The wind stirred her crimson armor tassels, a gentle reminder that strength was not the absence of fear, but the will to rise above it. Her words wove a tale of transformation, of a gladiator who became more than steel and flame, becoming a symbol of hope and renewal. Standing beside her, Cade's blade sheathed in his presence calm, he placed a steady hand on Korga's shoulder, a silent vow of unity. "In losing your fear," he said quietly, "you won us all." His eyes reflected the stars rising beyond the amphitheater's arches. There was no longer just a warrior between them, but a partner and a leader. "You taught us that true strength is not measured in conquest alone, but in the honor of opening one's heart to freedom and to those who stand beside you." Their bond, forged in battle and sealed in peace, shone as a testament that love and courage were intertwined forces powerful enough to reclaim galaxies. Above them, suspended in radiant emerald light, the T emblem glowed, a symbol etched into the hearts of all who witnessed this moment. It shimmered like a guiding star across the plaza, illuminating hopeful faces turned upward in awe. The narrator's voice echoed softly, from the fiercest gladiator to the gentlest sovereign. The legacy of Throvic hearts stands eternal, a beacon that even the hardest steel bends to the strength of compassion and the courage to change one's fate. The emblem's light pulsed, a living testament to transformation, unity, and the enduring power of a single challenge that reshaped a galaxy.